Before you spend that Lincoln penny, stop. That tiny 1-cent coin in your pocket could secretly be worth hundreds, even thousands. Some have doubling you can only see with light at the right angle, others hide mint marks that were never meant to exist. And the rarest ones? Most people walk past them every day without knowing. Check your pennies. One of them could change everything. The story of the 1960 Lincoln 1-cent penny error coin begins with a moment in American history when the mint was undergoing dramatic change, technology was shifting, and small imperfections slipped through the cracks, imperfections that today can transform a single copper penny into a life-changing treasure. For collectors, these coins are more than metal. They're snapshots of history frozen in time, and the 1960 penny is one of the most fascinating examples. The moment you pick up one of these old cents, even if it looks ordinary, there's a chance it could be a rare variety that collectors chase relentlessly, especially because the value of the rarest versions has soared into a staggering range from around $68,570 all the way up to an unbelievable $159,750. That kind of price tag for a simple penny is enough to make anyone look twice at the change lying around the house. The journey begins with the year 1960, a year known among collectors for the famous small date and large date varieties. That year, the mint produced two completely different date designs, and because of the rushed production schedule, dies were changed mid-year, leading to a mixture of varieties, combinations, and ultimately the errors that now command these astonishing values. People often imagine that rare coins must show dramatic, obvious mistakes, things like off-center strikes, missing elements, or double images. But with the 1960 penny, the most valuable errors are often subtle, the kind of thing you wouldn't notice unless you knew exactly what you were looking for. And that is what makes these coins so appealing to collectors. They reward the careful eye and the curious mind. One of the most sought-after varieties of this year is the 1960 small date over large date transition error. These usually show signs of repunched dates, doubled numerals, and misalignment between the old and new die designs. That overlap is what creates the rare visual signature collectors crave. Some pennies display a strong overlap, where the underlying date can almost be seen ghosting behind the primary numbers, while others show faint impressions requiring magnification to appreciate. In either case, the market value rises sharply because of the sheer difficulty of finding these coins in pristine condition. The mint never intended for these transitional die varieties to exist. They were accidents, the kind of accident that becomes priceless decades later. Collectors love stories like that, mistakes turning into miracles. And that's exactly what makes certain 1960 era pennies so exciting at auctions, especially when a coin surfaces in mint condition. One remarkable example occurred when a near-perfect 1960 small date over large date penny crossed the auction block and pulled in more than $42,000, shocking even seasoned collectors. But that was just the beginning. As attention on these varieties grew, prices climbed even higher. Another specimen with clean surfaces, strong doubling, and excellent color sold for over $55,000, proving that the appetite for this coin was growing. The most stunning moment came when a collector-grade gem sold for extraordinary value, soaring beyond earlier expectations and landing just shy of the six-figure mark. And eventually, the highest recorded auction example pushed into the realm of $159,750. An incredible figure for a 1-cent coin that millions of Americans walked past without knowing the treasure they held. But what makes this particular coin so special is not just the errors. It's the emotional weight behind it. The Lincoln cent is one of America's most iconic coins, with more people recognizing its design than almost any other in U.S. history. When collectors find an unusual version of such a familiar coin, the sense of discovery feels even greater. It's like uncovering a hidden chapter of a story everyone thinks they already know. The 1960 penny represents a transition not only in die design but in the mint's overall system. That year saw the highest level of experimentation in decades. The mint was dealing with increasing production demands, pressure for more efficiency, and the challenge of keeping up with the booming economy. Those pressures created the perfect environment for minor oversights that turned into highly valuable imperfections. As years passed, many people unknowingly spent or discarded these rare pennies, and because the errors are subtle, even coin shop owners and banks overlooked them. Only the most devoted numismatists at the time recognized the importance of the small date and large date differences. Over the decades, as collectors documented more varieties, the value rose and the mystery surrounding the 1960 penny deepened. Today, the fascination continues, especially because new finds still appear in unexpected places. Imagine finding a penny from 1960 in a jar, a drawer, or a box of old coins gifted by a relative, only to realize it's the transitional variety struck by mistake. The possibility alone is enough to excite anyone, and that excitement fuels today's strong market. Even heavily circulated 1960-era pennies can bring in impressive prices, sometimes selling for hundreds or even thousands depending on the strength of the error. But the real magic happens when one appears in high grade. The moment a mint state or near-mint specimen hits the auction stage, collectors battle fiercely for it, driving the value upward with extraordinary speed. It's not unusual for bidding wars to erupt within seconds, especially when a coin shows sharp doubling in the date or extremely crisp details. In one notable sale, a collector walked away with a spectacular transitional error coin for more than $68,000, surprising everyone with how aggressively the bidding escalated. These auctions prove that the demand for 1960 pennies isn't fading. It's growing stronger each year. A big part of that demand comes from the beauty of the coin itself. When preserved well, the copper tone of a 1960 penny can be breathtaking, ranging from deep red to bright, vibrant orange, and sometimes showing natural shades of brown that give it character. Collectors love coins with original luster, and when that shine combines with a rare error, the value skyrockets. Another component collectors look for is die variety strength. Some examples show bold doubling, others present minor shadows or distortions. But the most valuable ones have crisp, unmistakable transitions between the small and large date designs, making them stand out immediately. One of the fascinating things about this coin is that many people already own 1960 pennies without realizing which variety they have. That's why collectors and experts encourage everyone to check the date carefully. Look at the shape of the numbers, the spacing, and any unusual markings. The 6 and the 0 are the key features that change between the two designs, especially the height and alignment. A subtle difference can mean the difference between a regular penny and a rare, life-changing treasure. This sense of possibility fuels the thrill of searching, turning even a simple coin hunt into an adventure. So when you think about the fact that a penny, something we typically overlook, can be worth between $68,570 and $159,750, it becomes clear why the 1960-era penny is one of the most talked-about coins among collectors. It embodies the perfect blend of historical significance, visual intrigue, rarity, and unpredictability. Every time a new one appears on the market, collectors line up with anticipation, wondering if the specimen will break the previous price record. And with values continuing to rise, it's entirely possible that the next auction could produce a new all-time high. In the world of coin collecting, treasures don't always shine brightly at first glance. Sometimes, they hide quietly in old jars, dusty drawers, or long-forgotten boxes. The 1960 Lincoln Penny error coin is one of those quiet treasures that has surprised countless collectors and continues to inspire new ones. The idea that such a small, ordinary-looking coin could be worth tens of thousands, or even over $150,000, is part of what keeps numismatics alive and exciting. And as long as people keep searching, stories like the 1960 penny will continue to remind us that history has a way of leaving us little gifts, if we're willing to look closely enough. The story of the 1972 Lincoln 1-cent penny error coin begins far more quietly than you might expect for a coin that would go on to shock collectors, light up auction floors, and leave everyday people stunned to learn that a simple copper penny from their pocket change could be worth a small fortune. At first glance, the 1972 penny doesn't look like anything out of the ordinary. It carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right, the classic words, "In God We Trust," arched above his head, and the same wheat-era legacy that collectors have admired for decades. But what many people never realized is that hidden among the billions of coins minted that year were rare and dramatic minting mistakes. Errors so bold that they transformed an everyday penny into a numismatic treasure worth anywhere between $60,650 and an astonishing $140,900 depending on the condition and severity of the error. Imagine holding a coin minted more than 50 years ago, a coin that millions of Americans spent on bubble gum, newspapers, and bus rides, yet one of these tiny pieces, of copper might today be worth more than a brand new luxury car. That is exactly the kind of excitement that surrounds the 1972 Lincoln penny errors. The most famous mint blunder from that year is the double die issue, a dramatic shift in the minting process that left the lettering on the coin boldly doubled, especially the words Liberty and the phrase "In God We Trust." Under normal lighting, even without magnification, the doubling almost jumps out at you, making this one of the easiest yet most thrilling errors to spot. Collectors love bold errors, and the 1972 double die is considered one of the most important in U.S. minting history. When one of the highest grade examples hit an auction a few years back, bidders went wild. The coin climbed past every estimate and finally sold for over $70,000. But that wasn't the record. Other examples in pristine condition, nearly flawless despite being decades old, have soared all the way to almost $95,000. And then there are the unicorns. The coins with perfect surfaces, dramatic doubling, and nearly untouched red luster that stunned everyone when they reached the $110,000 mark. The most shocking sale, however, came when a top-graded 1972 double die error penny sold for roughly $140,900, a price that cemented its place among the most sought-after modern-era penny errors in the world. But the excitement doesn't stop at double dies. The year 1972 produced several different variations and smaller secondary errors as well, adding even more layers of mystery and value. There were off-center strikes where Lincoln's portrait appeared shifted toward the edge, leaving a crescent of blank space on one side. These coins, depending on how dramatic the off-center strike was, could easily sell for hundreds or thousands. Some dramatic examples with sharp details even fetched over $8,000 in auction settings. Then there were the clipped planchet errors, where part of the coin is literally missing due to a cutting mistake at the minting facility. The curve of missing metal gives the penny a unique shape and, for collectors, a unique appeal. Most clipped planchet errors from the 1972 penny bring solid premiums, but when combined with exceptionally sharp details or additional errors, the value can jump significantly. And perhaps the rarest and most unusual error type of all, the broadstrike coins. These were pennies that expanded beyond their normal diameter because they were struck without the retaining collar. What should have been a uniform, round coin instead became slightly wider and flatter than the typical penny. These broadstrike errors are eye-catching, visually distinct, and quite desirable among collectors, often bringing in several $100s. But when one of these broadstrike pennies appeared with a double die feature, it sold for more than $6,500, proving that error combinations are where things can get truly wild. The beauty of the 1972 penny error story is that most of these rare coins entered circulation unnoticed. Kids received them as change in school cafeterias. Adults tossed them into jars, purse pockets, and old coat drawers. Some made their way into savings boxes that wouldn't be opened for decades. It's entirely possible that thousands of people have handled these rare coins over the years without realizing what they were holding. Even today, collectors still find valuable 1972 pennies in old penny rolls, estate collections, and dusty coin jars that haven't been touched in years. What makes this coin even more exciting is just how accessible it is. Unlike some of the historically rare coins that were minted in small numbers or never entered circulation, the 1972 penny is a coin anyone could potentially find. That keeps the dream alive for collectors, treasure hunters, and everyday people who enjoy the thrill of searching through pocket change. It's that possibility, however small, that the next high-value penny could turn up in the most unexpected place. Another reason collectors love this coin is because it marks a moment in U.S. minting history when quality control struggled under the pressure of high demand. Billions of pennies were needed to support the growing economy, and with such massive production, mistakes were almost inevitable. And while the U.S. Mint caught many of the errors, thousands more slipped through their fingers and into circulation, setting the stage for decades of excitement. Over the years, auction houses have reported some incredible finds. A beautifully preserved, red-toned 1972 double die penny sold at Stack's Bowers for over $90,000. Another, graded MS-67 by a top grading service, sold for more than $105,000. Even more modest examples regularly sell in the $8,000 to $20,000 range, showing just how strong the demand for this coin remains. Collectors also pay attention to color designations: brown, red-brown, and full red, The full red pennies, those that kept their original mint glow, are the most valuable. Combine full red color with an error and top-tier condition, and you're looking at the kind of coin that makes headlines. The fascination with the 1972 penny isn't just about money, though. It's about discovery. It's about history. And it's about the thrill of knowing that something small, something simple, something as humble as a penny can hold an extraordinary secret. This is why people today still check their pennies closely, flipping them over under bright lights, searching for those bold doubled letters that stand out like a hidden message from the past. The 1972 Lincoln 1-cent penny error coin continues to captivate collectors because it represents the perfect blend of rarity, visual uniqueness, and historical significance. It's a coin that turned ordinary Americans into treasure hunters and transformed pocket change into potential gold mines. And with values still climbing, especially for the highest grade examples, there's no telling how high the top prices might go in future auctions. For anyone watching who's dreaming about finding a valuable coin, the 1972 penny should definitely be on your radar. Whether you're sorting through old savings, checking inherited collections, or searching rolls from the bank, this is one of the most rewarding coins to look for. The doubling is bold, the variations are fascinating, and the potential rewards are incredible. From impressive smaller auction wins to life-changing sales reaching up to $140,900, the 1972 penny proves once again that sometimes the smallest coins can carry the biggest surprises. And the best part? The next valuable one might be sitting somewhere right now, waiting for someone like you to discover it. The 2003 Lincoln 1-cent penny might seem like one of the most ordinary coins of the past few decades. A coin so common that millions of Americans have handled it without ever giving it a second look. But what if I told you that hidden among those everyday pennies are rare error versions so unusual and so shocking that they've crossed auction stages and shattered expectations, selling for tens of thousands of dollars? That's exactly what collectors discovered when certain 2003 pennies began showing up with striking minting mistakes, and suddenly the coin that everyone thought was just pocket change became the center of bidding wars, sometimes shooting to prices like $44,800 to $120,120 depending on condition and rarity. It's one of those moments where a simple cent turns into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure, and today we're diving into the story behind why. When the U.S. Mint released the 2003 penny, no one anticipated that a handful of these coins would escape the quality control process with errors that collectors now chase with passion. The reason this year stands out isn't because the Mint was experimenting with new designs or materials. It's because the errors that occurred in 2003 are full of dramatic visual distortions. These aren't tiny, hard-to-see mistakes buried under wear. These are bold misstrikes, off-center strikes, double dies, die cracks, and even a few examples of broadstrikes that extend beyond the circular border of the coin. And the more intense the error, the more dramatic the price collectors are willing to pay. You might be surprised how it all starts with the simplest detail: the dies. These huge metal stamps that press the coin designs into blank planchets are supposed to be perfectly aligned and perfectly engraved. But in some cases in 2003, they weren't. Even a small misalignment can create a doubled image in Lincoln's bow tie, beard, or the lettering of "In God We Trust." When collectors looked through jars of pennies and noticed that the words Liberty or the date 2003 appeared shadowed or duplicated, they realized the Mint had accidentally given birth to a new wave of double-die pennies. And while not all double dies go on to become famous like the legendary 1955 penny, some 2003 double-die examples have still sold for impressive amounts. Then there's the off-center strike error. This one immediately catches the eye because the entire design is shifted, leaving part of the coin blank. The more off-center it is, especially if 60% or more, the higher the value climbs. Collectors love when Lincoln's portrait appears sliding toward the rim, creating a dramatic, almost artistic misprint. Some of the most dramatic 2003 off-center pennies have gone to auction and pulled in thousands, especially in high-grade uncirculated condition. But nothing excites collectors more than a major broad strike. In these coins, the collar that normally shapes the coin isn't fully engaged, causing the metal to spread out during the strike. The result is a penny that looks stretched or expanded beyond its usual boundary. These strange, distorted shapes attract major bids, and it's exactly these dramatic errors that helped push certain 2003 pennies into that jaw-dropping category of selling for more than a new car. That's how intense the demand for minting mistakes can get. One collector shared a story that has now become almost legendary in coin collecting communities. He was sorting through old change from a jar he had kept for years, not expecting anything special. But one penny in particular caught his eye because the rim looked strangely wide on one side and thin on the other. After taking a closer look with a magnifying glass, he noticed the strike was partially off-center, and Liberty looked doubled. He sent it in for grading, thinking maybe it might be worth something modest. But when the results came back, the coin received a high mint state grade and was labeled with 2 significant errors. When it went to auction, the final hammer price stunned him, more than $47,000. And that wasn't even the most dramatic example of a 2003 error penny. Some of the largest prices ever achieved for this coin come from certified mint state errors with multiple mistakes on the same piece. One incredible specimen featured a 35% off-center strike, a broad strike expansion, and heavy doubling on the reverse. This combination made it extremely rare, and collectors were eager to compete for it. The bidding heated quickly, and the final sale landed within the top tier of known values, just under $120,120. That's the moment when people realized how explosive the market for modern era pennies had become. And that's part of what makes the 2003 penny so fascinating to collectors today. Even though it's a modern coin, and even though billions of pennies were produced in that year, the handful that slipped through the minting process with dramatic errors became valuable because they stand out like genetic anomalies in a world of perfect copies. It's the imperfections that make them extraordinary. Another error that pops up occasionally in 2003 pennies is the die crack. This one is subtle but beautiful in its own way. A small fracture in the die shows up as a raised line across Lincoln's portrait or running along the memorial columns on the reverse. Some people call these lines lightning bolts. And when the crack is large enough to stretch across the coin, collectors start taking these pieces seriously. While not as valuable as the very dramatic errors, some of these die-crack 2003 pennies still sell for hundreds or even thousands when found in excellent condition. The key to understanding why error coins like these become so valuable lies in scarcity. You can't predict which coins will develop errors, and once they're struck, the mint doesn't reproduce them. They're one-of-a-kind mistakes, frozen in time. And because many error pennies get damaged in circulation, the ones that survive in strong condition become even more desirable. Another major factor is collector excitement. Interest in error coins has surged in the past decade thanks to online auctions, social media coin hunting communities, and viral videos showcasing massive error coin values. That means coins like the 2003 penny have more eyes on them than ever before, and more people digging through their old change looking for the next treasure. Rising demand always pushes prices upward, especially for coins already known to reach high auction numbers. And yes, there have been plenty of strong auction performances. A beautifully preserved 2003 broadstrike error penny in mint state red condition once sold for over $18,000. A double die reverse version graded exceptionally high brought in nearly $30,000. An off-center strike with sharp details crossed $11,000 at a national auction. These prices help fuel the myth, the excitement, and the energy around the hunt for the next big discovery. For anyone watching who wonders whether they might have one of these valuable errors sitting unnoticed in a drawer or in an old savings jar, the good news is that the 2003 penny is still found in circulation today. It's absolutely possible that someone watching this video right now might spot something unusual. A shifted design, a stretched rim, a double date, a raised crack, or even a blank area where the strike missed. Any of those signs means it's time to take a closer look, because your penny might be worth a whole lot more than 1 cent. Collectors always suggest checking the date and mint mark carefully, examining the portrait, the lettering, the rim, and the reverse details. Any distortion at all should be inspected with a magnifying glass. If the error is dramatic or the coin looks especially crisp and untouched, it can be worth sending it to a grading service. A certified grade is what helps coins break into the highest selling categories, and it's the reason the top-selling 2003 pennies reached $44,800 all the way up to $120. So as surprising as it sounds, the 2003 Lincoln cent proves that even the smallest denomination in American currency can turn into a high-value collectible when struck with the right kind of minting mistake. That tiny penny people overlook every day continues to stun collectors, and with each major auction, It reinforces one idea. In the world of coins, anything is possible. Your next big discovery might be sitting right in your pocket.